Okay, so we're going to start with chapter 2 in geography, that is location and extent. We're going to study about two different countries, the first one being India and the second one being Brazil. This is the map of Brazil. We'll have a deeper understanding about it later on in the video. So, a few features about the countries. What are they well known for? India is known for being the second largest populated country in the world after China. It is also famous for its spices production, and India has the popular sport of cricket. Whereas for Brazil, Brazil is famous for its samba dance. It's a form of dance over there. It has a high production of coffee, also known as the coffee pot of the world, and the popular sport in Brazil is football. So this gives you a brief idea about the two countries. So before we move ahead, let's understand the different hemispheres of the world. We know our four basic directions, that is north, south, east and west. Anything above, the direction above will be north, below will be south. Alright, what is to our left will be known as the west side, and to our right will be known as the east side. Okay, so now if you see on the left side of the screen, you can see the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Now this is the globe. We know latitudes are imaginary lines, horizontal lines, okay, on the globe. Now, if I take the main latitude at 0 degree, okay, that is known as the equator, okay. It divides the globe into two equal parts. On top here, I will have my North Pole, and below at 90 degrees south, I will have my South Pole. Okay, this will be 90 degree north. Like we know, anything above will be north. So anything above the equator will be known as the northern hemisphere, and anything below the equator will be known as the southern hemisphere. So when the globe is divided horizontally, we get two equal parts, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Now moving on to the right side of the screen, if we divide the globe vertically, or in layman's term, the standing line, then again we get two parts. Now we divide it not with any line. Firstly, we know what are longitudes, imaginary vertical lines on the globe that all meet at the poles. Alright. So we have a 0 degree longitude. If you can see this red line over here, this is known as the prime meridian. Alright. So again we have two sides, one on the left and the other one on the right. So again we can get two different hemispheres. The one on the left side will be known as the western hemisphere, whereas the one on the right side will be known as the eastern hemisphere. In this way, we have four different hemispheres on the globe. If the globe is divided horizontally by the equator, then we get the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Whereas if we divide the globe vertically, then again we get two hemispheres, that is the western and the eastern hemisphere, and it is divided by the 0 degree longitude known as the prime meridian, all right, which passes from London. Now let's move ahead to understand the location, extent, and boundaries of. Firstly, we'll see of India. Now, if you see here again on this in this picture, you can see the northern, southern, western, as well as the eastern hemisphere. So most of the continents in the world are located mostly in the northern hemisphere. Similarly, with our continent of Asia, and India is part of the Asian continent. If you can see Asia here in orange, this will be India here, this part. So we are in the northern hemisphere and in the eastern hemisphere. If you consider the equator, then we are on the northern hemisphere on top. And if we consider the prime meridian, then we are on the right side, right? So top and right, that is northern hemisphere and eastern hemisphere. Also, if you see the continent of Asia, we are in the southern part of the Asian continent. So this becomes a location of India. So India's name is the Republic of India, Republic because every citizen over here has the right to vote and have their representative. The capital of India is New Delhi, right here where it's marked. The location we saw, it lies in the northern hemisphere, the eastern hemisphere, and it is the southern part of the Asian continent. Now, what is latitudinal extent? Let's understand what is latitudinal extent. We know that latitudes are horizontal lines. Okay, so we will see the northernmost part of the country and the southernmost part of the country. So if you see here, it is 8 degree 4 minutes north all the way up to 37 degree 6 minutes north. Why not? Because it lies in the northern hemisphere. Alright, now if you see the longitudinal extent. So, latitudinal extent is, it ranges from 8 degree all the way up to 37 degree. That much, I mean, in these many latitudes is between these latitudes, India lies. Alright, this we got as the northern hemisphere. Now let's see about the eastern part, eastern hemisphere considering the longitudes. So the longitudinal extent will be from the westernmost part of India till the easternmost part of India. So westernmost part is 68 degrees. So this will be 68 degrees 7 minutes east up to 97 degrees 25 minutes east. So on the longitude, how much of India is spread? That's known as the longitudinal extent. Okay, this becomes latitudinal as well as longitudinal. So we know in longitudinal extent it's 68 degree 7 minutes east to 97 degree 25 minutes east. Now the northernmost part or northernmost point of India over here is known as the Indira Col, and southernmost part of India is here in the Nicobar Island known as the Indira Point. This is all about the location of India on the globe. Alright. Now let's move on to see the neighbors or everything surrounding the country of India. So we'll see first the neighboring states starting from the left hand side, that is from Pakistan. Alright, we can see here on the northwestern part we have Pakistan and Afghanistan. A little bit portion over here is where we share borders with Afghanistan. On the north and the northeastern part, we have China. We have Nepal sharing borders with India, Bhutan as well. We then have Myanmar over here in the southeastern part, as well as Bangladesh. Okay. Now we share maritime border. Maritime meaning water borders with two countries. This is inland borders. All right. So there are two different kind of borders. One is inland where we share land with the other countries, and one is maritime border where we share water with the countries. So here we have Sri Lanka as a maritime neighbor as well as the Maldives. All right. So this becomes about the different countries surrounding India. Talking about sea, we have the Arabian Sea on the west and the Bay of Bengal on the eastern coast of India. Also, we have the Indian Ocean to the south of India over here. So these are the neighbors or the neighboring countries, sea and ocean of India. Now let's understand the location, extent, and boundaries of Brazil. Brazil lies in the South American continent over here, this red continent, and more or less this is where Brazil lies. So part of it lies in the northern hemisphere, and maximum part of it lies in the southern hemisphere. All right, it is west to the prime meridian, so it lies in the western hemisphere. Now the equator passes through the northern part of Brazil. All right. Now at 23.5 degrees south, we have the Tropic of Capricorn that also passes through Brazil. One point that I missed is that we have at 23.5 degrees north here, we have the latitude passing known as the Tropic of Cancer. Now, how do we remember this? So you can remember I can, okay, I for India and can for Cancer. So Tropic of Cancer passes through uh, India in the middle. All right. So if Tropic of Cancer is over here, that is 23.5 degrees north, passing mostly from here. So if Cancer is on top, Tropic of Cancer is on the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, we will have Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so the official name of Brazil is the Federative Republic of Brazil. The capital is Brasilia. Okay, over here, you can see. We saw the location. It partly lies in the northern and mainly lies in the southern hemisphere. Whereas if we consider the prime meridian, then it lies to the west of it, so in the western hemisphere as well. Latitudinal extent, meaning these horizontal lines, how many of these lines is covered by Brazil? So Brazil, if you see the southernmost point, it is 33 degree 44 minutes south. Why south? Because it lies mainly in the southern hemisphere, but if you see the northernmost part of Brazil, it's 5 degree 16 minutes north. North because this is just above the equator. You can see this is our equator and this is the northernmost part. Alright, here 5 degree. So in the north, it extends by 5 degrees and in the south up till 33 degrees. So this is the whole latitudinal extent. Now if you see longitudinal, we have to consider the vertical line. How many of these vertical lines is covered by Brazil? Okay, to see understand longitudinal extent and how you read it, from the prime meridian, if you start going westward, okay, the first longitude over here will be 1 degree, moving further this way. Also 2 degree, 3 degree, 4 degree, and so on. Whereas if you move to the east, you have 1 degree. This prime meridian will be 0 degree. Then we have 2 degree, 3 degree. So as you move away from the prime meridian, either to the west or the east, that's how our counting goes further. So now if you see the eastern part of Brazil over here, this is 33 degree 47 minutes west. Moving towards the west, here The westernmost point is 73 degree 59 minutes west. So this is the longitudinal extent, okay, meaning how many longitudes lie between or pass through the country, and this will be the latitudinal extent, meaning how many latitudes pass or lie within the country. Alright. Now let's see the neighbors of Brazil. This is the whole of South American continent except two countries, that is Chile and Ecuador. Brazil is neighbors with all the rest of the countries in this continent. So if we start from the south, we have Uruguay, Argentina. Alright. Prague is one of the countries, neighboring countries. Then we have Bolivia over here on the west and Peru. On the northwest, we have Colombia and Venezuela. In the north, we have Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. Alright, so these are the 10 neighboring countries of Brazil. If you see, Brazil is the largest country in this continent of South America. To see the oceans, Brazil is neighbored with the Atlantic Ocean, its coast of Atlantic Ocean. Not Pacific because Brazil's borders are till. So on the west, we can say, or the north, west, and south, we have inland borders with countries, and on the east of Brazil, there is the ocean, that is the Atlantic Ocean. Alright, this is the location of Brazil. Now they mention about a few historical background of India. We know that India was under the British rule. It was a colony of the Britishers, and we got our independence in 1947. Soon after we got independence, the first struggle that India had to face was to develop its economy. Since we were under some rule, that was the British rule, our economy was handled by them. Most of our resources were exploited by them. So the first thing that India had to make sure was the laws, okay, to make and maintain laws. And the other one was to regain economy or to have a stable economy. That's why now, in today's present time, India is one of the major developing countries, and it is very known in the global market as well. Because of different economic reforms over the years, from the 5-year plan that we have to the LPG policy of 1991, LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Because of all these different various economic reforms, India's economic development paced up. Paced up meaning it got better with time. All right. Now, India is known as a young country. Why young country? Because most of the population in India is of the youth. That is the working population. That's why we have children, okay, or the kids. Then we have the youth, and then we have the senior citizens. Senior citizens don't mostly work. Children don't work, not allowed to work. So the working class or the working population is of the youth. And since this is maximum in India, that's why India is known as a young country. Historical background a little about Brazil. Brazil was under the Portuguese rule and they got their independence in 1822, that is in the 19th century. But again in the 20th century, between 1930 to 1985, almost half a century. Now, century means 100 years, half century will be 50 years. So for almost a little more than 50 years, Brazil was under military government. So the military was governing the country. They didn't have a parliament or they didn't have the president or the prime minister. They didn't have all of that for a long time between 1930 to 1985, and the country was governed under the military rule. All right. Soon after that, that is in the late 20th century is mostly 1980, 1990 years in this period on the way up to 2000. So this is the late 20th century. In this time, that is after the military government ended, they had to overcome their global financial difficulties. So even they had to recover their economy. This is why economy is so important because it helps you get connected to different countries, have relations with different countries, and also import and export of goods from different countries. Brazil is known today, present time, it's known as a contributor to the economic growth of the world as a whole. And it can become an important market in the future. It's not yet. Also, Brazil is a developing country, just like India. These are a few questions in your textbook. So the first one is out of the countries that you have colored, which country is larger in size? So compared to Brazil and India, if you see, Brazil is 2.6 times of India. So if India is, I'm giving you an example, if India is 1 square kilometer, so 1 square kilometer into 2.6 will be that of Brazil. So it is 2.6 times larger in size than India. Which country has a larger latitudinal? So this one will be Brazil. Okay. Which country has a larger latitudinal extent? We saw what is latitudinal extent, how many horizontal lines passes or lies within the country. That is from north to south. Now, if you see for India, the latitudes passing through it is from 7 degree north to 37 degree north. So that is 31 latitudes or 31 horizontal lines passing through the country. But if you see for Brazil, it's from 5 degree north to all the way up to 33 degree south. 5 degree north to 0 degree, they've taken the equator as well. And then from 1 degree south to 33 degrees south. So the number of latitudes passing through Brazil is 39. So there are more lines passing through Brazil compared to India. So latitudinal extent of Brazil is larger. How do locations of Brazil and India differ in position? We saw their location, okay, but here they've asked in position with their respective continents, not in the globe. They've not mentioned about globe. If it was globe, then we can say that Brazil lies in the northern and southern hemisphere and the western hemisphere, and India lies in the northern and eastern hemisphere. But they've asked with respect to continent. So उनके continent में where it lies. Now, if you see, Brazil lies in here. You can see Brazil lies mostly in the central eastern part of the continent. And if you see for India, India mostly lies in the southern part of the continent, of Asian continent. Okay, so that is the difference about their location with respect to the continents they lie in. How many states do each of the two countries have? This is uh, static data. India has 28 states at present, and Brazil has 26 states. Now, the flag of India and the flag of Brazil. We know India has a tricolor. So we have orange for courage, white for peace, and green for growth. We also have the Ashoka Chakra with 24 lines in it. That is, we are at service during all 24 hours. That is the resemblance of our Indian flag. If you see, this is the Brazil flag over here. The green part represents the flora and fauna. Flora is the plants, fauna is animals. The yellow in the flag represents the gold of the country. The blue represents the globe, and the different stars represent a constellation. This is the representation and the significance of the flag of Brazil. If you see the emblem, over here we have the emblem of India. We have four lions, okay, facing in all different directions. There are four, one is behind over here, meaning we are alert and aware of everything in our surrounding. We also have the Ashoka Chakra here. Alright, I explained it. We have 24 lines in the Ashoka Chakra, meaning we are serving around the clock, that is all 24 hours. We also have four other animals on it. This is the code word to remember. The bullock, okay? Bullock represents work or steadiness. Then we have the horse. Horse represents the energy and loyalty. E is for the elephant, that represents strength. And we have the lion. There's another lion over here down below on the back side that represents bravery. So the importance of an emblem is that it describes about a particular place, particular person, a particular area. So the emblem of India describes or gives you an idea about India. So using these different symbols, we explain the different values or the different benefits or core that India has or the beliefs that India has. Okay. In the same way, if you see, this is the emblem of Brazil. On one side, they have this plant. If you can see, one side is coffee and one side is tobacco because they have high production of these two plants. And they have the constellation over here, the stars, and the blue ribbon with the name of the country on it. Alright, so this is the significance of the flag of India and Brazil as well as the emblem of India and Brazil. Now, a little exercise, little revision maybe. We saw 23.5 degree north is known as the Tropic of Cancer. We can remember from ICAN because it passes through India. Okay, so the one will on the south will be the Tropic of Capricorn. This line over here that passes to Southeast Asia below India, okay, across Africa, passing through Brazil. This line is the 0 degree, known as the equator. Alright, we have different continents, 7 continents in the world, starting from the east. Sorry, starting from the west, we have North America, we have South America here, the continent of South America. Continents are basically mass of land that are together. Over here we have Europe. This is the African continent. This is Africa. This whole over here is Asia. This piece of land a mass of land is Australia. Alright, we finish with six. And one which is not shown in this map is below over here, and that is the continent of Antarctica, made fully of ice sheets, and humans cannot live or settle down there because of extreme cold temperatures. Alright, this is about continents. Let's have a look of the different oceans. So here below the equator, we have the South Atlantic Ocean. Here we have the Atlantic Ocean. We saw here below India, we have the Indian Ocean. All right. On top to the north, near the Arctic zone, we have the Arctic Ocean. Below, we have the Southern Ocean, not the Antarctic, but mostly it's known as the Southern Ocean. And the ocean between Asia all the way again up to Africa, because it's a globe, it's circular in shape, the points meet. This is known as the Pacific Ocean. So this will be North Pacific. Above the equator, this will be South Pacific. And this is the same ocean over here. North Pacific and South Pacific. So these are the different continents and oceans on the globe. Okay, let's just quickly go through the exercise. So the first question is asking you to state whether it's right or wrong or true or false. Brazil is mainly located in the southern hemisphere. This is true. Partly located in the northern, but mainly located in the southern. Alright. Tropic of Capricorn passes through the middle of India. This is false or this is wrong because we remember I can. So we can say that the Tropic of Cancer passes through the middle of India but not Capricorn. Longitudinal extent of Brazil is less than India. This is false. Both latitudinal as well as longitudinal extent of Brazil is more than India. Okay, the equator passes through the northern part of Brazil. This is true. This we have discussed. Brazil has a coastline along Pacific Ocean. This is false because what we saw to the east side of Brazil was the Atlantic Ocean. Now, Pakistan is a neighboring country to the southeast of India. Okay, so if this is the top part of India, okay, this will be northwest because this is north, this is west, this is south and east. Southeast meaning down here somewhere, which is not possible. Pakistan is here towards the northwest, not the southeast. So this will be false. And then we have the southern part of India is known as the peninsula. So this part down, the Deccan Plateau that we have, is known as your peninsula region. Now they've asked to answer in brief what are the problems that Brazil and India both faced after independence. The main problem was regaining their economy as well as the law, because from 1930 to 1985 we saw that Brazil faced some problems and they had the military rule over there. So these are the two major problems that both the countries faced. After being colonies, India was a colony of the Britishers and Brazil was a colony of the Portuguese. How are Brazil and India different from each other in terms of location? This we have discussed about which hemisphere they lie in and where in the continent that they lie in their respective continents. That is, Describe the latitudinal and longitudinal extent of Brazil. This again is discussed at length. Now you have to select the correct option in this. So southernmost point we know is Indira Point. Two countries that don't share the border, do not share border is Chile and Ecuador, and both the countries have the republic kind of government. Now if you see, they've asked you to say which kind of shape represents correctly the border of Brazil or the coastal part of Brazil. Now if you see here, mostly it's this shape. So the first one is more appropriate to it. As well as with respect to India, the third option will be correct, the peninsula region. Now they've asked you in the next question to mention about to correct or to now they've asked you in the next question to choose which shape correctly represents the hemisphere in which India lies. So this is firstly wrong. This should be south, this should be north. And if this is north and south, this becomes our eastern hemisphere. Alright, so ये तो गलत है. Then we have the second one. This is the southern hemisphere, but India doesn't lie in the southern hemisphere. If we take this as south and this as the equator, the diagram is right, but we don't. Our country doesn't lie over here. If this is taken as the equator and this is taken as the northern hemisphere, then yes, North Pole, then yes, India lies in the northern hemisphere. This diagram is correct, but this becomes the western hemisphere where India doesn't lie. So the answer is the third one, the northern hemisphere. With respect to Brazil, if we go to see, again, this diagram is completely wrong because south should be down, north should be up. This is correct. South Pole and equator, this makes the southern hemisphere. This again diagram is correct, equator and north pole, northern hemisphere. And this will be our eastern hemisphere because north on top, south down, anything to the right of the prime meridian. Okay, so the correct option is the second one. Alright, I hope you understood the discussion. Thank you.